Welcome to Rise and Shine Daily Business Tech Boost with me, Charly Leetham. If you're a small business owner looking to simplify technology and get real, actionable advice from someone with 35 years of IT experience, you're in the right place. Every episode, I'll dive into tools and systems like email, CRM, marketing and tracking, and break them down into bite-sized tips you can use right away. Your time is valuable, so let's get straight to the point. It's time to work smarter, not harder. Rise and Shine, it's your daily dose of business tech inspiration with me, Charly Leetham. Today it's episode number 357, the importance of regularly auditing your security measures. So let's have a chat about why security audits are essential first, and then I'll go through the things that you should think about with an audit. So a security audit, just to bring us all onto the same page, is a process we go through where we look at our existing security practices and make sure we understand what we're doing there. That audit also needs to include the things that we need to consider, let me try that again because I had a thought and I wanted to get it out okay. So that report also needs to consider the requirements and the frameworks within which we operate. The reason I say that is because our requirements change with security on a regular basis. But look, I live within Australia. I work within Australia. The things that have come out in terms of you need to make sure your systems now do this. You need to now make sure you're reporting on this. You need to now make sure you're keeping these logs. Change. I'm not going to say daily, but often enough that I have to go back through and say, well, am I meeting this requirement now? Is this something that I need to meet? Do I actually need to meet this requirement? That's a really good question to begin with. Does this apply to my type of business? Does it apply to a business my size? No? Cool. But I need to answer that question first of all. If it does, then I need to work out, well, am I already doing it? Do I need to put something else in place? What does that do to my cost basis? What does that do to all of the things that go with that? Now, let me give you an example of a situation where that occurred last year. It didn't affect me, but it didn't affect my business in terms of things that I had to meet, but it affected me because it was something that was put on me as a result of the requirements of our Australian government, and that was Xero. I was logging into Xero. I had multi-factor authentication enabled, and it was working perfectly. I logged in one day and Xero pops up this message saying, due to new Australian government guidelines, we can only allow your multi-factor authentication to validate you for 48 hours. After 48 hours, you're going to have to validate again. Now, it used to be that multi-factor authentication, you could log in, and as long as you were logging in on the same IP address and you had ticked, remember this computer, you wouldn't have to revalidate. If your IP address changed, you would, but no, you can't do that anymore. No, Xero can't do that anymore because of the way the Australian government wrote one part of the law. Now we have to revalidate ourselves every 48 hours. I'm not going to comment on whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. It's just a really good example of how your legislation, how the laws, how the requirements within your environment can change overnight, and you need to address that. You need to make sure you are addressing it. So part of your security audit is not just identifying the existing vulnerabilities in your system and understanding what happens if those vulnerabilities are exploited. It's also understanding what your requirements are from a legislative and environmental requirement as well. So make sure you do these audits regularly. Quarterly, 6 monthly, 12 monthly, that's up to you, but you need to understand what the risk is. The longer they go out, the more risk you will bear as a result of it. So think about that, but an audit is important. The things that you need to include in an audit, and I just covered some of that, it's, what are the vulnerabilities that you currently are experiencing or may experience, not are experience, may experience. What are the vulnerabilities within your system? What's the legislative framework and the laws require you to do now that perhaps you didn't have to do. What else do you need to do to be compliant within your own industry, within the country, within your the wider global context as well. So there are some things. The other things to consider with your audit is your software updates. Access logs, are you keeping them? How long are you keeping them for? What your employee practices are. Have you introduced new software? Have you introduced new hardware? Anything like that needs to go into your audit. So create yourself a checklist to cover these critical components when you're doing an audit. There are some out there. I'm sure I can find you some links if you would like them. I'm sure I can put you in touch with people who can help you do these audits as well. But make sure you cover all of this off. Once you've got your audit done, you can then sit down and look at the shortfalls, look at where you don't have coverage, and then do a threat and risk assessment on where you don't have coverage. Now, you notice I didn't say you can just go and patch those and say, oh, we need to meet them. The next step of that is doing the threat and risk assessment to say, this is the threat, this is the probability of it happening, and this is the impact if it does happen. So it's possible, it's probably the probability of it, and then what happens if it does happen? Is it a high? Is it a red flag? Is it a yellow flag? Is it a green flag? If it's a green flag, you probably don't need to worry about it. If it's a yellow flag, you need to consider, are you prepared to wear that level of risk? If it's a red flag, that's the ones I would absolutely be saying you need to patch and you need to have something in place for. So once you've got your audit, you do your threat and risk assessment, and your threat and risk assessment then tells you what your critical components are to cover. Hope that makes sense. It's always an interesting one for me to do, because people say, well, we'll do an audit. Okay, cool. Now, what are you going to do with that audit? So doing the audit isn't just enough. Yes, knowing is important, but then you have to action that audit. You have to take action on the findings of the audit. The action might be, we don't need to do anything. And you know what? That's fine. As long as you understand that these are the things that you needed to take action on, and you decided that they weren't worth the risk to you, or the risk that they posed to your business, that's the better way of putting it. The risk that they posed to your business was so negligible that they didn't need actioning. That is an absolutely valid approach to take. Only you can do that for your business, though. So, guys, are you conducting regular audits? What are you conducting in your audits, and what do you do with your audits once you have them? I'd love to know what you think. I would love to know, are you going to change anything as a result of what I've shared here today? Is there anything that I shared that you'd like to know more about, that sort of not went over your head, but kind of washed over you and went, I don't even know? My whole statement on that is, those were words, they were spoken in English, I didn't understand one. Well, understood them individually, put together, I didn't understand them, and that's okay too. Look, whatever it is, leave comments wherever you are watching or listening to this video. You can join me on my locals community, askcharlyleetham.locals.com. You can leave comments or send us messages on any of our social media channels, and I will eventually get to them. Social media channels are a little slower for me to respond to. Please, if you can, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, and I will see you all tomorrow for episode number 358. I'm going to be talking about insider threats to your business. Talk to you tomorrow, guys. Bye. Hey there, thanks so much for tuning in to Rise and Shine, your daily business tech boost. I hope today's episode gave you some actionable insights that will make your business tech work smarter for you. If you found value, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other small business owners who could use a daily boost. For more tips, tools, and resources, visit www.askcharlyleetham.com. Until next time, keep rising, keep shining, and let's make tech simple together.